What's up guys, this is Aaron P. Tech. Today I'm going to tell you the fastest way to become a web developer. Alright, let's get right into it. First of all, I'm a software engineer in Silicon Valley. I don't have any formal training in computer science. From the time I started programming, it took me about 8 months to become a software engineer, and I could have done it in half the time if I focused on the right things. So how's this video going to work? I'm basically going to break it into 4 parts. First, the problem. Why does it take people so long to become a software developer, and why do so many people give up before really getting into the interesting or exciting parts of coding? Part 2 is going to be the solution. How do you overcome these really common obstacles that a lot of people run into and stick it out for the long run to finally getting a job? Part 3 is going to be the study plan. What specifically do you learn? What resources do you use to go from zero to developer in the fastest amount of time? Part 4 is going to be how do you actually find that job? It kind of seems like a mystery how you could do this in such a short amount of time, and overcoming the hurdle to getting interviews and passing them is definitely the most difficult part, but you can do it if you follow a few steps. Alright, part 1, the problem. I see a lot of people online and who talk to me in person who say they're getting into coding. I'm usually pretty stoked, but then the next thing they say is, yeah, I'm learning JavaScript, Python, and a couple other things too. Right away, I know they're going to run into problems. The thing is, when you're polyamorous with programming languages, technologies, frameworks, or whatever, you're going to become what's called a jack of all trades, master of none. This is the last thing you want when you're coding, because it will take you a substantial amount of time to master one thing. And it's way, way, way more important to be actually good at one thing than really bad at 3, 4, or 5. Basically, if you focus on more than one thing, you're not going to move anywhere because you're kind of being stretched in all these different directions. Another way to put this is people are going for horizontal proficiency and not vertical deep proficiency in one topic. The other thing you have to keep in mind is this is actually really easy to do. There's so much information about what. The other thing to note is you can't actually blame these people because there's so much information out there that's telling you different things. For example, one article might say learning Python is the best for a new developer, but then you read another one saying the most jobs are with React. So it's hard to know what's actually true, but I'm here to tell you that if you focus on front-end development first, specifically the framework React, then you will be able to get a job fastest because on one hand, there's the highest supply for these jobs and the lowest demand. Most people in college, most people with computer science degrees probably know React, but they will not know it much better than you if you study for a few months. On the other hand, if you try to study a back-end language like C, C#, any of the C languages, or even Python, chances are these people who have degrees have been doing this for 4 years in school. This is the bulk of what computer science curriculums are. They might have one class in front-end development, but the majority of the classes are back-end and systems development, and there's just no way you're going to be able to compete with these people, at least not at first. Alright, part 2, the solution. If there are so many things to focus on, what do you actually invest your time in? I'm here to tell you it's going to be React and React's prerequisites, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. If you don't know what React is, it's a JavaScript framework, which basically means it is JavaScript, but there's kind of another layer of abstraction on top of it that makes it easier to design the front end of web pages. That's all you need to know for now. You're going to learn more as you get into it, but just know that there's a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of CSS, and a little bit of HTML involved in the React development workflow. So, like I said, what you want to study is React, and the key is to literally just ignore everything else. Even if you see an article or a YouTube video about Python, just don't open it. I'm telling you, this is just going to take away from your focus, and what you want is laser focus on React to really, really master these skills and get to a point where you can get a job really fast. Here's another key. When you're learning, you want to find content that's at your level, not above or below it. If you're studying and you start to kind of feel bored and you're not getting into what's called a flow state, that means the content might be at the wrong level, and this puts you dangerously at risk of giving up. You feel like you're not good enough to learn programming, but the fact is you're just not comfortable with the prerequisite material to learn what you've decided to focus on at that particular time. So if you notice this happening, go back, review what you've already learned, perhaps consume it through a different medium. If you learned it from a video, try building a project with it. If you learned it from a project, go watch YouTube or Udemy. Another pro tip that will help you kind of stay focused is using the Pomodoro technique, which is allocating 25-minute blocks of time with 5-minute breaks in between. A little add-on I use to help myself be more motivated for this technique is every day I would draw little tomatoes on a piece of paper for every 25-minute block I did. By the end of, I think it was about 2 or 3 months, I had filled up a whole page of paper with tomatoes, and that was my kind of goal, to fill up the whole page. And I basically had taped it to my desk this whole time and was just looking at it every time I sat at my desk. So I pretty often thought, okay, let me just get one more tomato, and then it turned into 2 or 3. And when you're actually getting started, you rationalize it like, okay, let me just do one, and then it will always end up being more. So this is a huge tip. So to sum that section up, focus on React, find content that's right for your level, and adjust if not, and use the Pomodoro technique. All right, part 3, studying. Here is exactly what to study, no BS. I'm just gonna tell you right now. First, you gotta learn HTML and CSS, the building blocks of front-end development. The way you do this is go on codeacademy.com. And what you get there is an interactive web course where it'll tell you how to do something, and then you just type it directly in the browser. And it's kind of this back and forth learning that you learn by doing. Let's put it that way. After you finish the basic level on Code Academy, jump over to a site called Udemy. Udemy is a online learning platform which offers courses that are basically world-class, and you get them for around $12. There's 10 or more hours in most of these courses, and what I would recommend is watching them on 1.5 times speed. It's going to take a while, several days to get through each, but if you think about the fact that you're actually switching careers, it's not that bad. I'm going to ask you to buy around 4, so that's an investment of about $50, but you're going to get, by focusing on the right courses, about as much value as you would in a coding bootcamp, which is pretty crazy when you think about those being 20 grand. If you're considering going to one of those, I would not recommend it. I did go to one, and I made a video on that if you want to check it out. On Udemy, you're going to want to search for basic HTML and CSS, and just choose the top ranked course. I think it has around 20,000 reviews, and that's almost 5 stars, and you're going to want to do that. It's going to be a lot of the same stuff, but this will reinforce what you originally learned, which, as I said, is kind of the foundation for the stuff we're going to get into later with React. All right, now that we've got our basic HTML, CSS down, we're going to want to start getting into the JavaScript, which is the real programming. There are 2 really good JavaScript courses on Udemy. The first is called the Complete JavaScript Course 2019, and the second one is JavaScript: The Weird Parts. Keep in mind that the second one is a little more advanced, so if you're not feeling ready for it at the end of JavaScript 2019, you can jump back over to Code Academy and do their JavaScript track, but I don't think you need to because the 2019 course is very complete. Once you've gotten those 2 under your belt, and if you kind of are feeling comfortable with the weird parts of JavaScript, you're more than ready to start getting into React. There's 2 more courses on Udemy that I would recommend for React. All right, the final 2 courses are 2 courses on React. One is called Modern React with Redux, and the other is called React: The Complete Guide. They're, I think, the top 2 courses on React if you search for React in Udemy. And these two are going to be very similar, but since this is what we're focusing on, we want to drill the fundamentals of React into your brain. I want you to build the projects along with the person in the course. Now, they give you the code as a folder to basically download, but don't do that. Type it out, get the muscle memory started for typing React code, and just go through it that way. It is going to take you a little bit longer, but this will kind of mechanically ingrain writing React into your head, so it'll start to feel more natural when you're typing it out. Also, typing it out helps us do the final thing in the studying stage, which is editing these projects to make them your own. A lot of web apps, and this is no secret, are basically very similar. What you do is get data, upload data, and edit data and delete data. It's called create, read, update, delete, CRUD, which is the acronym used in web programming for basically most web apps online, which follow this format. So you're going to build a few of these apps with Udemy, and things like the structure of where the files are and stuff, that is very similar from project to project. So the Udemy courses will help you get that set up, and then you can just edit the code within the structure when you are making your own projects. So edit these projects a significant amount. Play around with everything, see how things work, break it, fix it, and tear it down and put it back together. And this is really how you learn. So once you've kind of messed around and made these projects your own, you're going to want to build one project at least from scratch. Part 4 is getting the job, which is the most important final step. I'm going to keep it simple. There's a lot of things you need to do. You need to update your resume to look software engineerish. That means kind of leveraging anything technical you've done in the past to paint a picture of who you want to be as a software engineer. I kind of think of it like a Tinder profile. It's definitely you, but it's the version of you that will get you a date. The date is the interview, basically. So jazz it up. Once you've done that, there's 2 ways to apply for jobs. The first is cold applications, which has a very low conversion, but it's an easy, not easy, it takes a long time, but it's a very mechanical thing to do. So what I would recommend is to do 10 cold applications per day. Just blast them out, use Pomodoro, and just get them out. It's going to be very repetitive, but you just have to do it. I probably applied for 100 jobs and got 2 interviews, which is pretty bad, but keep in mind I had nothing technical on my resume except for writing kind of the languages at the top that I knew, as well as my projects. That's the other thing I forgot to mention. You definitely want to put your projects prominently on your resume, of which now you should have 3 or even 4 if you've done an extra project to become more comfortable with React. The other way to apply for jobs is to go for connections or referrals, which is a lot higher leverage in terms of how many hours you're putting in, but it's also more difficult for some people because you actually have to interact and message people that you might not know or might not know well. Where you start is basically go on LinkedIn and search for software engineers who have something in common with you. That could be your college, your high school, a friend of a friend. In my case, I used to be an English teacher in Asia, so I found other people who were former English teachers who transitioned to software engineers somehow, which is very niche, but the more niche and familiar you can get, the more it'll work kind of in your favor in terms of getting a response. So what you really want to do is start kind of dialogues and almost like just build relationships, because you don't really know where they're going to take you. Not everyone will agree to flat out refer you, but they might be able to connect you with someone whose company is hiring. You never know where the road will lead. So the other most important thing in this stage is to just not give up. It's really easy to get discouraged. And what I saw in the class, my bootcamp class that I graduated with, is there was a large group of people who either took some time off or basically tried for a few months and then just straight up gave up. And you just can't do that. It could take you 4 months to actually get the job. I mean, that's not what you want, but it could happen. And you just can't give up, because eventually, I'm telling you, if you keep coding, which you have to do to keep your skills sharp, and keep applying, it will happen for you. You'll find the opportunity, but a lot of it, unfortunately, comes down to luck, especially when you're going for a beginner position. So I know that might be a hard pill to swallow there at the end, but that's just kind of the reality of the situation. But if you do want it, then you will get it. That's the fact. And the more you apply for, the faster it'll happen. So it's really up to you how quickly you want the job. Anyway, that's the whole video. The 4 parts. Main things to remember are: focus on one thing by being monogamous. Follow the courses that I mentioned. They're all really good. And basically follow those 2 job strategies: networking and applying. Those should be the big takeaways. And also use the Pomodoro technique. Anyway, that's all I got today. I hope to see you guys soon. I will be making more videos, and catch you later.